the Colorado Gold Standard.
Go ahead.
But because of that, there are a lot of questions that get asked, and they will say, oh, well, we publicly count our ballots, etc. I've never seen anybody counting the ballots for the special districts publicly. They're counted by the law firm that is in charge of it. And where, when, and how, we don't know. What we do know is that in many cases, because the districts do not want to hold the elections, and they are very expensive, they approach candidates and ask them to withdraw from running. The other thing that FAIR has discovered in the last few months is that if a district happens to have a vacancy, if somebody applies, they must fill that vacancy immediately, even though they may have posted on their website that they don't have to fill that vacancy until 2027. That is incorrect. If there's a vacancy and there's an applicant, they need to fill it. So the development that's occurred is there's a district referred to as the Meadows. It's in Castle Rock. And it's been on our radar for quite a long time. Its location is basically about 2 miles west of the Outlet Mall. And it's called the Meadows. And it's a big circular loop in there. Very prosperous, but also very puzzling. Charles Wolfenberger, who is a CPA that is passionate about special districts and has figured out a way to sort of make a living out of it as well, held a meeting this week in the Meadows. His normal turnout for a meeting such as he was holding is about 15 to 20 people. We had over 150 people at this meeting. I was invited to the meeting because my son-in-law and daughter live in this area, and my son-in-law has made a determination he's going to run for one of the district boards, which thrills me. But the fact that there were 150 people there was amazing. The Meadows is broken down into 7 districts. District 4 is the master district. We probably will not be able to affect the master district, and I've heard conflicting rumors that there are as many as 153 homes in the master district to no homes because they've redrawn the map. I don't know. I'm going to find out more. The Meadows has been on our radar, though, because it began in 1985, and there were some things in 1989. In 1993, between 1985 and 1993, they issued 3 sets of bonds. The bonds capped the mill levy that the districts could charge at 35 mills per district. The original bonds were for $70 million, of which we can trace $57 million to expenses. But the debt now that will be due on 6/30/20, it's not due. On 6/30/2029, the interest will cease to accrue, but the outstanding liability is over $470 million. Now then, there's some peculiarities in this, and I don't understand them, and I'm going to try to meet with some people. For some reason, the issuer of the bond said that the interest would cease to accrue on 6/30/2029. Why? That does not make any good financial sense for them. And the mill levy is capped at 35. They can get payments for the next 50, 60 years to pay off that $470 million. But why would you ever cap it? Right now, the amount of tax that's collected on the 35 mills is about $20 million. The interest was around $32 million. It's quite puzzling what's going on there. I have already mentioned that District 4 is a problem. Karen?
I was just going to ask a question. If they are, I mean, that's a tremendous liability for the people that live in that community. By having by eliminating the interest, though, that's an advantage for those people, is it not? So that they then begin that money then begins to pay down the principal.
I think so. John Henderson, who was on this committee, has withdrawn from the Colorado League because he lives in Maine, and he is working on establishing a right to a lawyer in Maine.
Defender, yeah.
And so but he's still available for advice, and I will be meeting with him to ask some questions on this. Yeah, my thought is there's no point in refinancing at this point. You have the debt
Oh,
liability.
no, what they want to do is cash out.
Yeah.
They want to take out a bond, and then once that bond's taken out, they're dead meat out there. And they want to take their money and run. And like John said, and which is what we're seeing, is that they're setting up situations that will not only enrich them, but enrich their children and their grandchildren. And that this just goes on and on.
Of the 7 boards that are in the Meadows, 1 is controlled by the homeowners. The other 6 are controlled by, for lack of a better word, we will call the developer. I'm not sure they were the developer, but the name of all of the employees on the boards, 2 through 7, all of them work for Alder Corporation. Alder Corporation is another name for Donald Stern, who passed away last summer. But he has left his family very well provided for if this, getting $20 million of income a year, one way or another, even if they refinance it. We don't know. The concern, though, as Fair mentioned, is that in the next, between now and 2029, they try to refinance it, and the Alder family pulls away the Alder corporations are no longer part of this.
Yeah, and you failed to mention the way they've got this set up is it's like a personal bond. They have not sold this on the open market. This is like a developer bond, which unfortunately was codified by by the legislature last year to allow developers to not only tax people, but also to buy the bonds that to own the bonds that are being used.
This was a Rachel Zenzinger bill in 2023 that allowed that. So obviously the goal is to try to capture as many of the boards as we can to have them staffed by homeowners. That would be the ideal objective. Of course, it's very late in the season. Strangely enough, Charles had far more vacancies than I did on my paperwork, but that's not too surprising. I was working off the website and he was working off something else, I'm sure. One of the questions that Charles raised was one of the ways that was supposed to pay off the bonds was something called TAP fees. And they were $9,000 a property in 1989 and supposed to go up 5% every year. They had estimated that $180 million would be applied to the bonds. About $8.9 million were applied to the bonds. No one knows what happened to the money in between, or if the estimate was just purely bad.
How many?
In addition, Charles, who's obviously trying to get this business of this particular, Karen?
Neil had a question.
Okay, Neil?
How many homeowners in the development total?
I'm not sure total. I know in one portion of it, there's at least 8,000.
8,000?
8,000 homeowners. John has done a fair amount of research on it, but I did not have time to get to John. And I was basically found out about the meeting on Friday night and spent portions of my weekend trying to accumulate data for this Tuesday night meeting.
Do you think that there's going to be any pushback by the developers now that they may see that there are others that are concerned and are going to be willing to run for the board?
There may be. I can guarantee, I'm pretty much certain that we can retake District 6. I met enough people from District 6 to feel confident that they will at least gain the majority of the director positions on District 6. District 5 is a problem because the property within it is an apartment house. Most people are not aware that even though you're a renter, as long as you're a resident, you are allowed to run for the board. And of course, you certainly have the right to vote. I would like to find a way to make contact with some people. Charles brought the president of the Two Bridges Special District in Franktown. This woman has personally clawed back the directorships of this particular organization, reorganized the debt, and gotten it something manageable. She has 60 homeowners in there. I met another man named Chuck, who was from Fox Hall in Franktown as well, and he gave us a talked about how his attempt to create change essentially failed because the developer was still on the board, even though he only had one seat, and he was one who was insisting this was his board and they would do what he damn well pleased. So it was interesting listening to him talk. We need, one of the things that's a great need right now for this group is to find a lawyer who could and would be interested in taking on the developers. If you happen to hear of anybody, we would like to know it. And then, let's see, I have scheduled next Tuesday through the Jeffco League. We're going to try and talk to Arapahoe Douglas County a bit about what my findings were there, and maybe some of the things we can start working on for the 2027 election. I know you all know that I've made presentations to both Larimer and Weld County in the past. And one of the things that's been slowing me down is I can't do everything. I can't be president of the Jeffco League, be the communications director for Jeffco,
Really?
be the first VP for League, and do special districts. That's just not possible. So we need more life bodies that are interested, really. And I think I found out also that there's a district in Colorado Springs that the people that are interested in special districts were quite concerned about, called Wild Horse. And Wild Horse has had a major
Flying
settlement.
horse.
I'm sorry, correct me again.
Flying horse.
Flying Horse, my apologies. They have had a major settlement to fix some of the problems that were perceived down there. Questions?
The problems that were perceived, are those problems with roads or with the construction of the houses or with the
Always the
common
financing, always the financing.
area?
In the case, it's rather interesting, in the case of the one in Colorado Springs, 100% of everything they collect goes to the financing. In many cases, we see there's like so many mills going to the financing and so many mills going to the upkeep of the current property. They have managed to transfer all of the common property to the city of Castle Rock. And Castle Rock has the responsibility for that.
That's interesting. I'm surprised Castle Rock would take it.
I am too. And I forgot to mention, there's another reason that this particular district did not particularly come to notice by anyone. I said their mill levy is 35. That's not particularly outrageous, but overall, their mill levy is under 100 mills. I have special districts in Jeffco that are charging 193 mills total. The total tax bill is, average has been 98, something like that for the total bill. But when they're 193, that's right. Jerry, you have a question?
Well, mostly it's a comment. From your remarks, I see two overarching problems. One are special district elections, and what you've described is not peculiar to just the metropolitan districts. It's broad, it's statewide. The
All
turnout is
special
always really low. So that's one. The other is the dealing with the metropolitan districts and the peculiarities that you find with them. So I just see those as two overarching problems that could be split into different study areas.
I agree. And I mean, one of the things that I believe needs to happen, even though we did change the elections for special districts a few years ago to the spring of the odd years, they were previously in the spring of the even years. Voter turnout is atrocious for special districts. We cannot add it on to the fall elections of the even years. There's too much on the ballot, and I don't see where that's going to change. But what about moving it to the fall of the odd years and asking the legislature to start to fund these?
Is there a particular time when the cities and counties have their elections?
Generally in the fall. Now, like Denver's is in the spring, though, and it's not even on the May election cycle. Theirs is actually in April. But I think a vast majority in Jeffco, I know, are in the fall of the odd year.
I was going to add that one of the reasons you're seeing fewer numbers in terms of special districts is that their consolidations have occurred. And South Metro Fire is one example. It's used to be like 5 different separate districts, so now it's one. So
Mhm.
consolidation is occurring. And I need to run, and I thank you all. Take care.
Thank you, Jerry.
Right. Jerry's getting cataract surgery today, so
Yes.
she'll be able
Woo!
And
Good
then I
luck.
can see you better.
to without her glasses, maybe.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Other questions?
Is this something that we need to maybe visit, say, with Andrea about as a possible piece of legislation that needs to, obviously, we're not gonna do anything this year, but to talk about and get the legislature to look at, because it seems to me like some of these, we don't have those kinds of districts in my community, but it seems like this is highway robbery.
Well,
It is, and I agree with you, but on the other hand, I think one of the biggest things we need to do is get education out to the public because, as Fair knows, the special district lobbyists are extremely powerful and they are
well-funded.
well-funded because the developers fund them very well. And when I was talking to, I did open my mouth the other night. I wasn't intending to because this is an Arapahoe Douglas County problem. But I went ahead and talked about, there's a bill that Charles brought up the fact that there's no ethics requirement for these boards. It was left out of the ethics. Well, there is a bill right now and it's sitting in appropriations. And I brought up last night, everybody should be calling their legislator to ensure that they agree that bill should be passed. They've changed the fiscal note over the years. Right now it's sitting at $179,000 for
Really?
school board and the ethics of the special districts to be able to go in front of the ethics committee. That seems a little high to me. I may be wrong. I don't know. But this
And
is
this is the
nevertheless,
third year that this bill has been presented and it has been stalled by leadership in the House. Tammy Story is putting this bill forward and it is so that people who live in metro districts have someone they can go to, because right now they have no one.
What's the bill number?
1279, I believe.
What is it?
12, I think it's 1279. Give me a moment here and I'll check. Or actually, Fair, can you go out to the General Assembly and check for me?
I'll check it. I've been working on that bill.
From the House or the Senate?
It is a House
It's in the
bill.
House. It's Tammy Story's bill. Yeah.
Actually, I have the write-up on it. What am I saying? Or do I?
No, I've been working on the write-up.
Okay.
but,
Thank you.
I have to.
It's essential that, I mean, it is highway robbery, frankly.
Would it be helpful, do you think, I mean, if you can send me the information on this bill, I can certainly send it out to leagues across the state and say, contact your legislator and tell them even, now, will that be effective if it comes from somebody like me who's not living in a district where I'm affected, or are we
No,
doing just
your legislator has the right to vote on this bill.
right?
And because he has no skin in the game, he's going to be less likely to be approached by a developer. And so he's an ideal candidate to approach. Whereas, well, obviously Tammy Story is sponsoring the bill, but Rebecca Stewart, who is in Lakewood, might be a little more susceptible to a developer approaching her and saying, oh, please don't vote for this bill. We're honest, we don't have any ethics problems.
Well, the problem is the leadership in the House is not letting it out.
Why?
Because developers don't want it.
Truly, the developers do not want it. They do not want to be held to ethical standards. And they
And
know
the
that.
governor does not want it.
Yeah.
And they know that this stuff well, again, the meeting the other night was quite interesting in the sense of the people that were shocked by this. They had no idea because no one talks about it. No one makes them aware. We know that realtors don't know about it. Title companies don't know about it. And both of those should be disclosure points for a home buyer. My own daughter, who I mean, we were in the midst of special district discussion, and Fair about hit the roof when she bought the house, but she had suddenly got accepted on a bid in 2021. She'd made numerous probably 10 or 12 bids on a house, and houses, and she had not been accepted on any of them. All of a sudden she got accepted. She was ecstatic. No thought process about what's attached to this, and no time to research it. I don't know that I probably would not have changed their opinion because they don't have the background to know why this is wrong. Even though my son-in-law is an aeronautical engineer and my daughter's a nurse practitioner, that's not their forte.
Well,
we
the
have to get
problem,
this.
the problem is people don't know what metro districts are.
Yeah.
Even the legislators don't know what they are, most of them.
And we have
And
tried to
they
hold,
sort of know they exist, but other than that, they don't really know much about them.
and really,
And, so in the meadows, they were very smart, the developers, because they stayed under the radar by having a very low metro district rate. They set that rate as a maximum, and they couldn't even pay more than that. So they were accumulating not only interest, but principal since 1989. And they did not know, people in that, they didn't know they could even run for the board. That has been a developer controlled board since the late 80s, which is outrageous.
Neil, thank you for getting that up. I appreciate it very much.
Oh yeah, I found it too. Sorry.
He's posted it in the chat. That's terrific.
Okay.
I mean, you think about it, and you get two classes. Oh, I'm too busy. I'm a working parent. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And then you have the other side. Well, I'm retired now. I don't care. I need to be retired, and I don't want to do things. If you live, I preach, if you're breathing, you got to participate in society. You got to do something here. And allowing this to linger, we need to get education out into the population. And we need people to do it.
And Karen, to your point about trying to develop from legislation, I have been in another group called Coloradans for Metro District Reform for the last 5 to 7 years. And we have been down at the legislature, we have lobbied, we have had personal contact, we have tried to train legislators on the topic of Metro District, but to no avail. We have been able to stop a couple of things that were going to codify some very bad practices that, that wouldn't be on the radar of most people unless they really understood metro districts. And unfortunately, a couple of bad ones got through. That Rachel Zenzinger bill, which now codified a huge conflict of interest between developers and the people they tax, because they not only determine the taxation, they also get to buy the bonds that they require. So it's an uphill battle, but I would love it if the league would take that on.
Again, education, and then we can start for getting legislation going on it. But we have to have people out there that are clamoring for it too.
Do you think that the reason that the legislators are not interested is just because they're overwhelmed with so many other things and there's not enough noise on this particular one?
That's part of it. That's a significant part of it. And this is where term limitations hurt us, because even though we've educated some legislators on it, the term limitation, they're gone. We now have to go and educate a new group, try to talk them to coming to a meeting, which they don't want to do because this is going to have to occur in their off hours or, during the summer or some other time. So it's a constant battle of re-educating and re-educating. Fair.
Well, this is where I have been making my pitch recently about this is a great opportunity for the league, I believe, to step in at an earlier point in the legislative process. Because right now the LAC makes recommendations after the fact. We do all this research on bills, but if we were able to be stakeholders earlier on in the process, we could offer our services as research assistants to do research on a lot of things, because that's kind of what we do. And because most of these legislators are clueless. And when you go to a committee meeting and you hear them talk about stakeholders, I can tell you that in the case of metro districts, those stakeholders are developers in the cottage industry that makes a lot of money from metro districts. So I think the league could be stakeholders earlier in the process and maybe get some better bills out there than we sometimes see.
Would it be helpful if I contacted Maud and Thalia, our co-chairs of the LAC, if I contacted them
I
and
think I've made that pitch to them.
Value's is no longer part of the leadership of LAC anymore.
Maud is
It's
it?
now Linda Hutchison is the co-chair of, with
Oh, I
Maud.
thought, so it's Linda and Thalia then.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no. And yeah, Fair's made a number of pitches to him. We're just, again, I think, we start with education to the public and let's start seeing what we can get clamoring and then come back in and come and say, this is what we think needs to happen.
You know what, I don't know, would be helpful to me. I'm a timeline person. And it would just be helpful if you could, just etch out a timeline over the year and saying, this is where we need this to happen based on when the legislature starts and, back plan from those dates and kind of give us a big picture of the year and what events you think needs to happen when.
Okay.
That would help me in helping facilitate the planning on doing that. Just even a little paragraph, need to have a stakeholders
I
meeting.
can do that.
Yeah. So you have, because you have a big picture of where all these events happen. And I think we all need able to see that big picture so we know how to initiate some issue, some inertia, I guess, around some of this. And when I was on a meeting, I don't know which meeting I was on, but somebody says, look, well, what are our strategies? And I'm going, I really am kind of digging into that, but it has to be about timing. It has to be about who we need to get together by when, in order to have something happen when the state legislature kicks off or when there's summer studies to, kick off. So that would help me if you would do that.
Well, I have all of us, if we want this committee to get engaged in doing something, which I would like to see this. I mean, I think we've come in, we've talked, and we've produced a document, but I don't know how much we've done besides just talking about it. And I think it would be, if there's something that this committee can do to be a force to actually get something done, then I think we would probably all feel really good about that. Of course, it would, it would require a commitment to actually do something. So, and I know everybody's busy, but I like Barb's idea. It would be, I think,
and it might help us in recruiting. I want to tell you, there's people that are all jazzed up about things that are going on, and they say, "Well, where can we help? What can we do?" But we have to know what we're doing and what we want them to do, and then we can put out the recruitment things and saying, if you're really interested in this area, we're working on it. We need help.
What I'm hoping for, one of the things I'm hoping for is Fair tells me that Charles is putting together a list of the 100 worst.
Oh, he doesn't want that out there. Okay, he doesn't want
that from me.
He doesn't want that spread about.
But if we could ever borrow that, that's the first time I've ever said that publicly.
I'm actually working on one for Jefferson County. I'm trying to, but it takes so many hours of resource. I could use a committee of 10. And I'm trying to show the outrageous profits that are being made by developers. They're using them as profit centers. They're not using them as just infrastructure. The profits, like she was talking about the Meadows. Someone's already done a study of the Meadows. They had 1,000% profit. The developers did before they even took out the bonds. Okay, so that tells me they didn't need those bonds to begin with. So they're just being used as profit centers.
Let me ask you this, because I have to admit I'm somewhat ignorant. I'm assuming when we're talking about the developers that they're coming in, they're putting in the roads, they're putting in the other infrastructure. Isn't all of that attached to the cost of the house?
Yes.
Let me walk this through. Let me walk you through this, Karen. It should be.
It is, Neil.
It is. Okay. In Loveland, there's a property, area called Parkland. And Parkland, in 2017, the developer bought the land for $900,000. In 21 and 22, they sold the land, 76 lots, to home builders for $10
Developed
million.
lots, developed lots.
The lots were already had the sewer, the streets in them,
Okay.
$10 million. In the meantime, they'd also taken out a $5 million bond that has to be paid back. Now, Charles got in here and he was able to, they were planning on taking out even more. And he managed to get that capped. So they didn't, and he got the developer off the board. So this is a success story. But we've got $10 million coming from the home builder. He only paid $900,000, and then he's got a $5 million bond. And there's another catch in here. There is no oversight on this. So we don't know what he actually paid to develop that land. How much did the pipes cost? How much did the road cost? It may have cost him $2.5 million. So he profited there when he got the bond out, told the district it was $5 million. Because remember, the developer is the special district, so he is doing the accounting for it as well. Now, interestingly enough, Lakewood has just put in a new procedure whereby, I think it's passed, I'm not sure, Lakewood will have to approve any special district bills until the homeowners take over. They are cracking down on it.
Does Lakewood know enough to be able to really look for the things that they need to look for to rein those developers in?
Well, it's an improvement. It's not perfect, but we get incremental steps here. I have to live for incremental steps on this. Plus the fact is, all of those people doing that work should have pulled permits. This is how John Henderson was able to trace Solterra. He went back to the original permits that they declared. Now, we all know that a contractor lies when they pull a permit, but they lie the other direction. They don't want to pay tax on it, so they make it the cheapest possible development they can. Somewhere in between's the truth.
Did they go to the Trump School of Development?
They didn't have to go. This is the nature of the industry.
It is, unfortunately. But we have just, been able to show because normally, I mean, we've done research on what is a normal good profit margin for developers, and it's 20 to 30%, and we're seeing 1,000%. We're seeing, how much was the one you did the workup on? Was that over 3,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they got tax benefits, didn't have to pay taxes on it because of the nature of the bond. I don't know. So it was just incredible.
They didn't pay sales tax on it because, of course, it's a contractor working for a government entity, and then they got to have all the income. It's income coming from a government entity, so that's tax-free. What more does one want?
I don't want to make more work for you guys, but if you would be willing to put something in an outline for us, I mean, I apologize, I didn't get the recording right away, but regardless, I think we need to have something on paper so we can see it. I mean, I'm appalled by what you've said, but in order to be able to share that with other people that may be interested on this committee, and for us to move forward and share it with the LAC again, and maybe get Beth involved in the conversation to see what it is that we do, because it sounds to me that the solution to this, or at least a partial solution, is to get the legislature engaged and get some legislation enacted. But I agree with you, Christine. I think a lot of it's education of the people that are either living in those subdivisions or that are thinking about buying. I am a little bit shocked that when somebody buys property, that the title company isn't required to tell them. Now, whether they hear it when they're buying and paying or not, we have people that live in our HOA that swear that they didn't know it was an HOA.
They tell them, I call it the disclosure of no return, because they do it when they're closing their house, after they've sold their other one, and after they've already given up their rental. And what did they do? They say, oh, well, I'm not going to buy this now. They've got no place to live. We have presented a disclosure form over and over to the legislature that would be so simple, and There are realtors in town that believe it should be done. There are loan officers. My daughter's a loan officer. We're the league. I'm a representative of the league that can do training for realtors and groups, because most realtors don't even know what a metro district is. So it's a huge problem of ignorance, and people just don't know because it's an odd law. I personally, after reading it and studying it all these years, don't believe it was ever intended to be used for dirt districts, for brand new districts. I think it was set up to allow people that lived in unincorporated areas of the state. For instance, let's say you had a community up in the mountains here near Evergreen, and they're all on wells, and they want to have a water system. Then they could choose to tax themselves and do this. But unfortunately, some smart attorney saw a loophole here, and it grew from there.
Jan, you have a question?
Yeah, I sure do. This is way over my head. I'm not getting it at all, but I do have a question. Does this have all of this? It seems like it's a big mess. Does it have any impact on either the availability or the cost of housing? What's the bottom line for all of this? What's
It
the
makes it
impact?
higher.
And it
They
makes it
claim-
surprising because you
They
only learn
claim
it
that
after you
it
buy.
saves money, but if they were really using that money for infrastructure, they would sell the house up front for a lesser amount. Their arguments are so convoluted, and it actually, as study after study can show, that it actually raises the cost of housing, because when you're talking, most mill levies now for metro districts and up and down the Front Range are 75 to 100 mills a year. That's huge.
And then you
And
had the
people
school board
To
consider
in
me,
that
there.
that
people
seems
think-
like that's what should open the door, is the impact on the citizens.
Well,
If you
the
want people
problem
to
is
get
they think it's a property tax, and it is not. It is paid with their property taxes, so they assume that's what it is. But it's not. It's a separate, it's just paid with property taxes, and then the county pays that money to the metro district bond repayment.
Jan,
So it's and so people think they're paying all this tax. Well, why do you need more taxes? Well, it's not helping your county, it's not helping your community, it's just helping repay a debt for 30 to 40 years.
Neil has,
and one of the things there, in 2019, the Post ran a series of articles on this, and they were talking about people losing their homes in Johnstown because the rate was so high. The first year it comes out and at like $1. Nothing, because it's on the farm property. But then the years after that, when it catches up, all of a sudden it's Brianna Titone's is 2 years ago was over $10,000 her property tax bill for a house in Candelas, which is not that big a house, frankly. It's not.
And then there's a growing problem with water. For me, this is part of the no-brainer, is we're having developments that really don't have the water, and Sterling Ranch got by getting that in. A judge put a temporary stop to it because he says, you can't even show me that you've got 20 years worth of water. Well, they finally showed somehow that they were going to have 20 years worth of water, but they really don't have the water. The developer controls the water board down there. They have now tapped into Highlands Ranch water, which if I had been in a Highlands Ranch in person, I would have been outraged by. So now they're going to get access to Highlands Ranch water. And, and then there's these bills. We just had a bill I had to write an opinion on, a developer trying to force a water company, a water district, to give him water. Okay.
He was not in there within their boundary. He was nothing to do with the special district. He's outside their boundary, and he's trying to get a law passed that they will have to provide him with water. So where does that stop?
The issues are compounding, and there's also starting to it's starting to kind of show in the bond market in Colorado. There are some problems growing.
Neil had a question, and then I'll go to, I don't know your first name, Mitchell.
Vicky.
Vicky, okay.
Yeah.
Neil, I think
And-
you had something to say.
No, go
No.
go ahead, Vicky.
Okay, Vicky. Vicky, do you have a question or
No,
comment?
no, I don't.
Sorry, okay.
And by the way, Christina and I have done multiple training presentations on this. If anybody's interested.
And I will tell you, when we did and we're happy to come out. We've been to Weld County, and you know, even presenting to our members, it becomes a very ho-hum situation because a lot of them say, I'm not affected personally by this. And they don't understand that the roads that are clogged outside of the special district because of the traffic coming in from the special district, you are paying for that, not the special district. I'll take an example. There's a number of new special districts around 48th and Ward Road. Ward Road is outside their boundary. Now the traffic is increased heavily on Ward Road, but the rest of Jefferson County is paying for the repair work on Ward Road, not the 6 new special districts that have come in there. Okay.
Okay, well, on that depressing note. Things are not
And
good.
for those of, somebody asked how big the Meadows is, almost 24,000 people.
Thank
lot of-
you.
Up in a lot of money, do you think that we need to have like a statewide Zoom where we invite people that if you live in a special district or know somebody who lives in a special district, that you all would be willing to make a presentation, and then that way those people that are affected may be more likely to attend, and you know, maybe somebody comes just because they have an interest in it. Is that, should we push for something like that? Would that be
that would be a possibility, Karen. What I actually like doing is making it personal to the area. So if Jan were to invite us to Montrose, I would, and it'd be a Zoom call, but we would come up and find the worst special districts in Montrose.
Okay.
And look at one of those and find a house. I did the same thing for Weld when I went there.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you would be willing to do, you're doing these meetings by Zoom, you're not actually going to Montrose. But what I think I'm hearing you say is that you would like to have, Jan wants to have you come, that you would tailor your presentation to that particular area so that it becomes a personal thing. But, okay, so maybe what I should do is get the word out and say, if you have special districts in your area, that you and FAIR would be willing, FAIR, can I include you too, that you and FAIR would be willing to do a personal presentation, Zoom presentation specific to
Locale. Is Montrose in Delta County?
Montrose County.
Oh, it's Montrose County. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking to see if they have any metro districts. The majority of metro districts, unfortunately, along the Front Range, up in the Vale area, and now they're moving into Grand Junction. Developers are discovering them is a good deal. So,
well, if you can, I mean, I can send this out to all the leagues. If there are specific leagues that this should be tailored to, I'd be happy to. I can send it out to all the leagues, and if you'll get me those names of districts of leagues where there are special districts, I'm happy to send it out specifically to them and say, you know, if you can get me the information, I can say you have X numbers of special districts within your sphere of influence.
The good news is the Department of Local Affairs has made this much easier to run by type.
I just looked up Montrose County, Jan, for your information. And there are 2 new metro districts there, so they're just discovering these. One of them is called Cornerstone, and the current mill levy for that neighborhood is 90 for just the metro district. That will probably double their taxes, more than double their property taxes.
May I ask what there is for Mesa County?
Mesa, okay. Let me go back there.
Karen, we have a half an hour left before you need to leave. How long is Barb? Because maybe we should put off this other one until April.
to say, let's move to Barb if March is the next one. Well, you can't come. You can't come in March, right?
No, I cannot come in March.
It's an equal.
Oh, Mesa has a bunch.
Okay. You guys get that to me and I will get it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
All right. All righty. I'm going to turn it over to you then. Barb. And
Yeah, I'm just gonna primarily talk about the SAVE Act. There's been several national action alerts on it. I think it's on our banner, on the state banner, because we're really concerned about this particular piece of legislation at the national level. It's been introduced in the House. I don't know whether for sure in the Senate. What I have understood is they're trying to get legislation moving, so they're introducing things in both houses at the same time. So we have to keep our eye on it, but nonetheless, we really need to get in contact with both our senators and our House representatives about this bill and our concerns about it. And I found a good article that just kind of just narrows in on the issue of the problem. You know, I mean, I'm really concerned about what's happening with elections and voters and registration and voter suppression. And even though this sounds like a very good act, like safeguard American voter eligibility, doesn't that sound great? Why would you not want to do that? The whole bill focuses on, and it took me a while to sort through all the noise. The bottom line is that in order for American citizens to register to vote or update their registration information, they have to present documentary proof of citizenship in person. For the vast number of Americans, this would be passport or birth certificate. So that's the requirement. The caveat is that every state in the union already has this kind of law and prevented people who aren't eligible, they're not able to vote, or they have a way of making sure that you have the qualified ballots that you're being counted. So this is really not necessary. What this means, and one of the things they've listed on here, government issued driver's licenses, which are called real IDs, as well as military or tribal IDs, do not qualify the bill's requirements. I'm just saying, I'm reading what it is.
I know.
what do you take?
And what this is really doing, interestingly enough, it's manipulating the system. So like when you register to vote, you send in your registration and everybody checks out your credentials. What this is really saying is now the burden of proof of whether or not you're a citizen of the United States is on you to get that birth certificate to present in person to somebody when you register to vote. So this is changing the way all citizens would register to vote. And how might that be? Online. It would also would not allow some nonprofits such as us to do voter registration drives, a third party, because remember, you have to present this documentation in person. So why is it problematic? One of the problems are only 146 million Americans do not possess a valid passport. Let's see, it says high rates of passport ownership are overwhelmingly concentrated in blue states, while low rates are concentrated in red states. I think that's interesting. In 7 states, less than 1/3 of the citizens have valid passports, such as West Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Oklahoma. I mean, this is a version of voter suppression, really.
Suppressing their own voters, Barb.
They sounds like it to me too. Well, this is interesting. I found this little thing. It was at the end of an article published by the American Progress. But the other thing is it impacts women. 84% of the women who marry because they don't, they change their surname. So there isn't anything, lots of times the documentation doesn't reflect the change in your surname on your birth certificate.
About a social security card.
Barb,
that-
can I
yeah.
interrupt for half a second here on this?
Yeah.
Just so
Sure.
it kind of drives it home. On her birth certificate, my mother was listed as a male, multiple birth.
Uh-huh.
Fortunately, her aunt was still alive when we discovered this,
Uh-huh.
and we were able to get a corrected birth certificate. Now, my mother is 91 years old, and I made her renew her passport last year, just for this reason.
I'm glad you did, because I have to renew mine and I'm scared to death.
And she can't find her marriage license, and I cannot get it out of the state of Oklahoma.
Well, all I have is I have a slip that says where my birth certificate is in Sioux City, Iowa. I
Now,
mean,
right this minute.
Well,
so
my husband's
anyway,
The bit.
it says here the SAVE Act makes no mention of being able to show marriage certificate or change of name documentation as proof of citizenship. Let me see. And it goes on. Let me see. Certainly, it impacts socioeconomic levels. It says that only 1 in 4 of high school degree or less have valid passports. Only 1 in 5. It's an income situation. With 50%, $50,000 and below have a valid passport. So also young Americans going to school, different levels of education. It says here coastal elites are less likely group to be adversely affected by the bill. Let me see. I was looking.
Elites.
Yep. I was looking to see, most of the time it's the whole issue, and also people, if you have to register in person, people may not have transportation to get to the place that they have to register in person. And it also wants, now if we can't register online, it's really going to put a burden on the clerk and recorders and the people where you have to go, because they have more people standing in line waiting to have their registration approved.
Does
So
it happen to forbid the clerk and recorder from going out into the public?
I don't know. I don't know. It just says voters could no longer mail in voter registration. They're concerned about automatic voter registration, like the motor registration that we have when people get their driver's licenses. So that's basically the impact. It's all about this identification that you need and how that's going to be done, implemented, and what it might eliminate us doing in the future.
I see.
Can you send me a copy of that article so that I can send it to everybody? Would you
Sure.
send me?
Yeah, I thought it was very good. It was kind of very concise. I've had several. There is a place on the National LWV US website. If you work your way through the league management piece and over to voter registration, there's talking points on it. But I thought this was very clear and very concise. And I've read a summary of the bill, and I thought it would have impacts on a lot of different things. But basically, it's all about this registration piece and making sure you're really eligible to vote and preventing non-citizens from voting. So yes, I will. It's on my desktop.
Barb, one of the most successful ads I'm running or Facebook posts I'm running right now is the one that talks about women not being able to vote because of this act. It's got a
Okay.
wedding ring picture, and it's doing very well. But can you get Katina to put some of this data into something we can put up on Facebook? I pulled this one I'm
sure.
using down from LWV New Media, but it's been very successful. I'm getting a lot of hits on it.
Oh, nice. Well, I happen to belong to actually Karen got me involved. It's called Nonprofit Vote. It's a nonprofit group that educates other nonprofits on how to get people registered to vote and active. And actually, it's kind of like a different form of League of Women Voters, where we go directly, but they're working with organizations and businesses and things that they want to get people educated about what they need to do. So it really always has some excellent resources. And I kind of drilled down on a couple of the articles that they had referenced as their talking points. So I will get this sent out. I will talk to Katina and send it to her as well. and seeing if she can boil down some talking points, because I thought it was pretty clear. So it's really impacts women, it impacts socioeconomic levels, kids, and it's really interesting. But especially the red states, I don't know what to. That might take another level of analysis, but I have a feeling of who they're trying to keep from voting.
I can see another impact of this, and that's
Yeah.
the burden on state and county clerk's offices and
yes.
registration and the passport office, which, they're trying to slash the federal government. If people can't obtain the records that they need because of the overwhelming amount of people trying to get their records. And
Excellent point.
no,
Yes.
I just received new copies of my birth certificate because, I'm not sure exactly where my old copies are, and I want to have new copies.
I think
So,
that's a smart thing to do. And I'm in the process. I have to renew my passport this year. And
mhm.
I'm going to work through the Denver office because I'm really scared to send anything back to Washington, D.C. at this point. But I think every one of us needs to get a lot of our documentation together and know where it is and that it's in safekeeping.
Mhm.
So
And
excellent observation.
this doesn't work against just recent immigrants. I look at my ancestry, and
Mhm.
I have jokingly been calling it my pedigree recently.
Yes.
But on one track of my family, it goes back to the 1640s in New England.
Mhm.
This bill would impact me too. My most recent generation with immigrant ancestors is, I think, my great grandparents. And it would still impact me because, I have a different name that I started out with.
Oh, I see. Oh, got it.
Mhm. Well, and
Hadn't thought that deeply about it, but
I
that's,
Mhm.
still remember all the problems I had filing my first return after I got married.
Mhm.
It was rejected because it didn't match the Social Security records. And what are you going to tell women? Don't adopt your husband's name
uh,
if you want to vote.
That may be the smart thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
wow. Well, I don't know. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I hate to say, but I'm keeping an eagle eye on what's going on at the national level and trying to synthesize and simplify what the issues really are so we know what they are and we can talk to our friends and our family and other members in our groups and clarify for them what the problems really are and why we need to. Everybody's asking me, what do we have to do? I said the first thing is contact elected officials. So get your copy of elected officials next to you and
Mm.
be ready, because I think that's what we're going to have to do in every issue that's coming at us from here on out.
Something that heads of election departments in each state need to stand up and say the impact that it's going to have on them. And in
Yeah,
fact,
I think we need to. We better check Karen and see. Maybe I will contact the Clerk and Recorders Association, state group, and find out what they're thinking about this, because clearly
see, I cannot remember who the head of that is.
I can't either. And we talked to him this fall with candidate forums. It'll come to me.
Okay, let me, just because I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do and that you're doing what you have agreed or that I think you've agreed to do. Barb is going to send the document that she's been referencing to me. I will send it out to all of you, and I will also wait until you get something in a nice format from Katina. If you would ask once that's done, Barb, if you please ask her to copy, send that to me as well as to you.
Okay.
Christina, you mentioned that you had something on the SAVE Act that's gotten lots of response on your Facebook. Could you send that to me? I can then send it out to everybody, and I will. These things I'm going to put in my update too, because they go to a whole different group of league members. But that would be something that would be, if you can send it in a format that would be easy for people to just upload to their own websites, Christina, if that's okay with you.
Well, that's how I got it. I downloaded it to my own personal computer, then uploaded it to the Facebook page.
Right, good, great. Then
My
I
skills
will
are
get
primitive.
that out too. I will contact Linda and Thalia and just mention to them, as far as special districts are concerned, that probably the only way we're going to get anything effective in place is that there has to be some legislation that's going to entail some education. And I think that's part of what the LAC does with our legislators, is to try to help them educate. But that there are, you and Christina and Fair have lots of information. You could lead the charge on that if they.
Well, we have actually offered training to the legislature before, and they just don't show up to do it. We did have one, and they sent their aide. You know, it's like they're not really educating themselves. I know they're busy, but we offered it in the off season. We offered it at all kinds of time. It was
Maybe though, if it comes out of the LAC this time.
I was gonna say, and I think we just need to keep hammering it until finally somebody gets the message. I understand, Fair, your frustration, but I don't think you can do it once, twice, even 5 times. You just have to keep going back again and again until somebody finally says,
yeah.
okay. And maybe if we can get, if we can raise Andrea Wilkins' awareness, raise the awareness of the LAC, if we can get them to be engaged as well, then they may have contacts that will help.
It would be nice if we could do a push on that ethics bill.
Yes, yes.
Because poor Tammy, this is her 3rd year presenting it, and they just let it die.
Okay, well, Neil sent me the link to that, and I can get that link out. Excuse me, I can get that link out to everybody too, and ask them to please call their legislators and again, just to be sure I have it.
You know, as tax averse as Coloradans are, especially on this
really?
side of the western slope, if they understood the impact on them, I mean, you might be creating a bunch of squeaky wheels. The people this harms are the people who need to be making the noise.
It's true. You're right. You're right.
That's what I
Yeah.
think.
And a lot of them probably just don't know that what's happening to them until they get themselves caught up in it, and then it's too late.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right, Christina. If they don't really understand it or don't find when you get ready to, just something from my own experience, when you get ready to sign off on a piece of property or sign off on a house, you know, you've already fallen in love with that. And if there isn't really a concerted effort made to make sure people understand what they're signing for, or that there's no information, I think they need to have the information before they even, you know, that ought to be part of the advertising material, that, you know, this is an HOA, this is a special district, this is what you're going to be taxed, so that people know that that's part of the financial commitment they're making.
I would think realtors would have to disclose this kind of things, wouldn't you?
But most of them don't. I mean, I have a friend who's a realtor, and I asked her one time, I said,
They don't know
what
either.
do you tell your clients about metro districts? And she said, what's a metro district? I mean, it's not uncommon that realtors don't know what they are. I did a presentation to a group of realtors, and this one gal is sitting there and she goes, well, I am in one and I am getting on the board, you know, but she didn't even know she was in one. So, anyway.
And I'll be honest, Jennifer drugged me to my first Highlands Ranch Special District. I've been down here 32 years and I have never been to one. And she drugged me to it last spring, you know, and it's like, yeah, you know, working mom,
I've
things.
heard that term special district as long as I've been involved with the league as voter service person. And that to me means the ambulance, the firefighter, they need to, you know, it had nothing whatsoever to do with this kind of thing. This is totally a whole other thing.
Yeah, we're talking the special districts includes metro districts, fire districts, ambulance districts, water districts, and again, turnout on the fire district for Jefferson County, the West Fire District is pitiful. So nothing else pushing on that to get voters to turn out for it, but they make you go and do it in person. You have to line up, and then, it's just a nightmare on all the different techniques that are used to keep things from happening.
Have you guys thought about, like I said, I live in a little community here. There is a realtors board where a lot of the contractors apparently, as well as the real estate people, that they meet. Have you checked to see if there are realtor boards in the communities that have special districts where you could maybe go and make this presentation?
Well,
I
what
would be
happened?
excited to have you come as a speaker to give them
Yeah.
information.
Fair did something really clever. She got licensed. Okay, when you're a presenter with someone that requires continuing ed, you have to be an approved presenter. She got herself approved as a presenter by Department of Regulatory Agencies for the realtors. And she made a realtor presentation, which was terrific. That was a solo operation by herself because I was gone. But, we have to get around to, again, time is everything, getting enough people to do it and all of that. And it was just like, we kind of let it, well, the last year's been kind of fall off because I'm doing all these other things too.
And
So-
another problem is a place, I guess we could use the church out there in Golden again. Fortunately, where I did the presentation, they had their own room for me to use that would seat about 30 people and which was quite nice. And the fact that they could get credit, continuing ed credit, was a positive. But it is, I mean, I think I could be doing a whole lot more if I had a place to present. I don't have a place to present. So I need to do more outreach on that.
That was just a
But
thought.
we have to work with other groups too, because we can't do all of them by ourselves and
Yeah.
Did
see
you
who
look
we
at-
can generate interest from.
Did you look and see if there's if there were any special districts in Montezuma County other than, the standard sanitation, fire, cemetery?
I think I've looked and I don't think there are, but I don't remember for sure. It's been a while.
So they didn't actually have anything like that.
What,
so.
this is Cortez you're talking about?
Montezuma County, so it'd be
Oh,
greater.
Montezuma. I can look.
I figure as long as I have this resource, I might as well ask. And then I maybe want to be been out of shape about it. Vicki, would you want to introduce yourself to tell us what league you're with, or if you're with a league, and
Oh,
introduce?
yes. Certainly. I am Vicki Mitchell. I'm with Mesa County.
Okay,
with
great.
the league. So we're as you know, in the process of going to co-league formation, and I am the coordinator or chairperson or whatever you want to call me.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Welcome.
Is that process continuing to go smoothly for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's going okay.
Good. Carrie, I see you have your hand up, and would you introduce yourself and tell us?
I've had my finger on the raise hand for a little bit to do that. So I wanted to thank you guys. You are my first League of Women Voters meeting. So yeah, so that's kind of why I was muted and no video. I didn't know. I thought there'd be more people. But I know members are growing because I've gotten another person signed up. She's in Southwest Colorado and has been to a meeting, and this is very eye-opening to me. I'm in Arvada. I always say I'm in Golden.
You're one of mine.
I'm in Fieldstone. Hopefully it's not a special district.
Terrible to tell you.
Fieldstone, that sounds familiar.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, this is my first meeting, and I'm excited to join the league and get involved. I'm kind of gonna try some different meetings and see what really gets me. But the SAVE Act I have heard of, so I am very interested in that. The special districts was new and very eye-opening, so thank you. That's very shocking. Yeah, and there should be disclosures.
It's not a metro district.
Oh,
I
good,
just
thank you.
looked.
Like I go to our board meetings, they've never talked about paying back the bond, so I wasn't sure, but yeah, there's got to be, I'm a recruiter in the mortgage industry. There's got to be a way to get disclosures from the developers.
Well, what's
there
happening,
should be a way.
my daughter is in the mortgage industry as well.
Mhm.
That's who I did my first training with, was the group that she, works with. And she said they're starting to consider Metro District taxes in that estimate now, because that's an aftermarket upcharge, and they haven't been considering that previously. So they are starting, some mortgage companies. There is one guy, a loan officer here in town, that does training for realtors too.
Yeah.
That's a plus.
So
Well, I
thank
hope
you
you're
all.
meeting today to be productive, and that there are some, are you attending today, both you and Vicky, because you got an email from me, or did you find out about this meeting somewhere else?
I think when I just signed up for the league, I went through some of the different groups, and this was one of the groups that I was interested in, so I signed up for it.
If you did not get an email from me and with today's agenda, if you
Oh, I think I
did,
I'll have to look.
well, I was going to say, if you didn't, my email is up there. It's just Karen Cheek, KarenScheek @gmail. Send me your contact information, and I will add you to the list. So that now, I apologize. I've got so many other things going on that I'd like to get the agendas out earlier, but if I get them out the night before, I feel like I've at least.
Well, the good news is, Karen, you don't have any Metro District, but boy, do you have a lot of cemetery districts.
Yeah, we do.
You got a bundle.
They're all run by their own little boards. So,
8 cemetery districts.
fortunately, the property tax on those is fairly minimal. So, well, excuse me. I think we've talked about some very important things, and I've made notes of things that I'm responsible for following up on. If any of the rest of you, Jennifer, I know you've had some concerns too. I got in a couple of minutes after the meeting started, just because my computer had shut down. But
I have no problem.
I'm hoping that Beth will follow up with both of us on that. And if she doesn't for some reason, let me know so that I can maybe either push a little bit or follow up with Katina and find out what's happened. So, because that would be helpful. If there's anything else that you guys think of that have to do with elections, or that have to do with the special things that Fair and Christina, that Barb has talked about, I think one of the things that we all need to do, especially now when all of us are feeling like, my God, what can I do, is contact your legislators. Yes, it may not influence them to respond the way we want them to, but if we don't reach out and let them know how we feel, then that's on us. And there is a very, very quick and easy way to respond to your local legislators. It's called 5calls.org. It is a progressive site, so I don't know that the league actually supports it because it's not nonpartisan. But if you'll go on 5, and it's 5, the number 5, calls.org, if you'll go on that site, type in your address and your zip code, it pulls up automatically who your legislators are. For example, I live in CD district, and so my legislator is a new one this year. He's called Jeff Hurd. And then, of course, Hickenlooper and Bennett are our senators. It includes a telephone number, and they also include a whole list of things that you might be interested in contacting them about. It can be, and these are national level things. This can be like Medicare, Medicaid. It can be Social Security. It can be voter services or whatever. And then if you click on that, what it does is it gives you some text for talking points. I like to read the text, see what they're suggesting, and then when I make the call, I do it in my own words, and I try to refrain from outrageous or, you know, I'm enraged. I try to tone down the language some. We can be as enraged as we want to, but sometimes I think that may be a turn off. So anyway, that's one tool that might be easy for you to use. And, you know, some of the people in our league are either making 5 calls every day or they're making 1 call 5 days a week. It's, you know, whatever works for you, but it's contact your legislators. And what I have been told is that when you do stick to one topic, don't call and talk about a whole bunch of
Right.
things because they can't log that. It just is discarded. So
They don't have the time. They're just swamped.
exactly. Stick
Mhm.
to one topic and be respectful and thank them. And I think sometimes it's really nice to call and say, I appreciate the fact that you voted yes or no on this particular piece of legislation, because let's face it, they're getting lots of nasty stuff right now. And
Yeah. Cass Patel was just confirmed, by the way.
I can only pray that we'll be able to hang on until 2026, and then hopefully some of the people that voted these folks in will have seen the light and something different.
Karen, can you give either Christina or me or Jennifer over to host for just a minute? I just wanted to report to them on a bill that when we sign off, just as when we sign off.
Okay, hang on just a minute. Let me.
Oh, God.
Christina, I've made you the host, and
Thank you. You have?
I've made you a co-host. Hang on just a minute. There's a co-host. Hang on just a second. I didn't click the next step here. Okay, Fair's the co-host, and
Oh, yeah, it shows Christina is up there. Yeah.
Terrific.
Okay.
Okay.
are you
Thank you. I just want to give them a report on this bill we had going.
Probably I'm not going to leave, because I think if I leave, then you all leave. So I'll just
Which
do
is
that.
1:30. You said you had to go. No, if you turn over, I think it's okay. I don't know.
Well,
If it isn't, I know how to get a hold of them and set up a quick meeting, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you all so much for coming today. As soon as I get the stuff from Christina and from Barb, I will send it to you guys, and then I will send it in my update. Would you guys all like to be included in the update?
Yes.
Because if you would, then please email me again at KarenSheik.com and just say, add me to your update. And I am happy to do that. I send those out sometimes once a month, sometimes several times a month, depending upon how much information I have or whether it's really urgent. So, and again, if there are things that you think would be valuable from your own local leagues or just things that you have heard, then let me know, and I'm happy to include those in the update too. My goal with those is always to provide local leagues with information so that they can work smarter, not harder, and not have to duplicate efforts. So anyway, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks,
Nice
Karen.
meeting you all. Welcome, Carrie.
March the 20th. March the 20th is the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, I just got a note from on House Bill 1211,
Uh-huh.
and they have made some major modifications, all of which addressed my issues in the report, the write-up that I did.
Great.
So it now,
Well, start with the title, please.
it's the tap fee bill, the
Okay,
HB, yeah, HB 1211, is it? Let's see.
Okay.
Where'd it go? The number. Anyway, so they modified it and added a section that says, this section shall not apply to service outside a district's boundaries by contract. The terms of the relevant contract shall govern such extraterritorial service. The term capacity as used in this section shall mean and include the physical capacity of the district's then current infrastructure, the sufficiency of the district's then current water rights to provide water and or sewer service to new customers, and the district's financial capacity to fund all required infrastructure and water rights, all without creating detriment or harm to existing customers.
Okay.
So they no longer can insist that they give them service outside their district, basically.
Well, I couldn't understand why Rebecca Stewart would, well, all three of those would be sponsoring that bill when it's a Lakewood thing anyway. And, you know,
Because she obviously has no understanding. She's kind of being run by, it's the same developer that's doing the Belmar thing.
mhm.
And yeah, so I think that's why she's on it. She seems to be stepping into Rachel Senzinger's shoes.
Okay, so be it.
Yeah.
We just have to educate her. some
Yeah,
more.
so fortunately, that is probably gonna make it an innocuous bill as far as the developer who wanted it passed go.
Well, send Andrea a note that they amended it.
Okay, I will. I'll forward this to her. Yeah, the draft. Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
That's all I wanted to say. Oh, no, I
Congratulations.
didn't. Did you?
What'd you do?
Well, Mary Peckham wrote me. You probably
Uh-huh.
haven't had time to see this about this bill on the tipping thing. And she wondered if the local government committee has an opinion on it. And I'm like, holy cow. So I did a bunch of research, but I'm trying to figure out why they wrote this bill. Let's see, where is it? It's bill number. All right, it's House Bill 1208. Local governments tip offsets for tipped employees. So I was very confused by all this. It has to do with the minimum wage. And there are two counties and one city or two cities who have higher minimum wages than the state minimum wage.
Uh-huh.
I sent all this to you. You should have an email on it.
Okay.
And then it's got a tipping differential. So like, for instance, the state of Colorado, the minimum wage is $14.81, but it's only $11.79 if it's an employee that gets tips. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Boulder, Denver, and Edgewater they all have higher minimum wages, and they accounted for that tipping piece. It's $3.02. But now there's this bill to make those entities also add to the tipping offset the difference between the state of Colorado minimum wage and the minimum wage that they've established for their county. Neil's in Boulder. Maybe he can weigh in. Anyway, so now they have to
I
add
wish I
that
understood it.
differential.
I don't understand it. Thanks.
Do you know this bill?
I've heard about it, but I haven't understood it.
I know. I find it very confusing. I was hoping Christina's, having worked for the tax revenue service, that you would get it. But so now they've made them add the difference between their minimum wage and the state of Colorado's minimum wage, in addition to that $3.02 to the tip differential. So I was trying to figure out, is this advantageous? Is it disadvantageous? And who?
Oh, it's not advantageous. It's designed to allow the employer, instead of paying, let's say $11 is what the minimum amount the tip is supposed to be allowed. And the
Right.
state's, well, that's not a good example. So Edgewater, let's say Edgewater is 13 and the state's 12. I'm going to do round numbers. They're going to
Okay.
have to take that dollar and subtract it from the amount so that, you don't have to, the employer doesn't have to pay you a minimum of $11 in your salary, is what they're after.
But my understanding is they're adding to the differential. They're,
It's a terminology difference. It's effectively subtracting from the minimum wage that they must pay.
oh, so it's making them take it down to the actual state minimum wage.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, then they said, I mean, I read the financial thing on it, and my head was spinning by the time I finished. Let's see, what did it say? Oh, well, I don't know. Anyway, so it is a disadvantage to the employee?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So why would they want to do that? I don't understand.
Because the employers are saying it's killing me having to pay this minimum wage amount of over the
In
state.
those counties, like
In those
Boulder,
counties, in
Denver, and
those cities, yeah.
Edgewater. I mean, in Boulder and Edgewater, it's very minimal, the difference.
You
Compared,
have to
Denver's like
remember
a
that-
$4
Yeah, it could be a minimum,
an
but
hour difference.
what's happened? Oh, they want to go back to the old way of doing things. When I used to waitress, let's say minimum wage was $3, but they only had to pay me as a waiter 75 cents because the rest of it was supposed to be made up as tips, whether I did or not. But they also presumed I was going to lie about how much I actually collected as tips. So they allowed for that factor to be in there too. And most people are paying by credit cards anymore. So it's really hard to lie about how much your tips are when the employer
Right.
has a record of it.
Right.
So, but this was when I read the post on it, I haven't read the bill. It was definitely an employer bill.
Okay.
And
Okay,
people with money tend to be really skinflint when it comes to tipping.
That I have seen that in some people. Let's see. Let's see, where's this bill number? 1208. Okay. And have too many things open. Yeah. Local government. So I'm trying to see who wrote the bill, the sponsors. Who are they? Okay, well, Stephen Woodrow, a Democrat out of I don't know where. Valdez, another Democrat out of District 5. He's in Denver County. Okay, so he's getting yelled at by Denver employers, right?
Yeah, and this is where the Restaurant Association is located too, is in Denver County.
Okay, and here the last one is Judy Amabile or something, who's out of Boulder County. So this is all out of the counties that are affected. Okay. All right. So anyway, do we want to write something up on that?
Well, since they sort of disbanded us, I don't know. You can call Andrea and see if you can, and see if we can.
Oh, they disbanded. What did you say?
Well, since they sort of disbanded the local government issue group.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Mary Peckham wrote me, and I'm like, geez.
I mean, this was yesterday, but it's just, Jennifer and I have both been so overwhelmed that it's quite, something had to give here on my schedule. And they made the decision.
Well, I'll write to Andrea and ask her if anybody's
picking it up.
Work up on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It may go to the revenue team. I don't know why.
Oh, good. That makes the most sense to me. And if local government's been disbanded, then that's probably where they would have sent it.
Yeah, and if it goes to the revenue team, I'll be writing it up anyway. So.
Oh, okay. Well, now you know all about it.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time doing all that math.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Karen, Jennifer, anything?
I'm good.
Okay. Vicki, thank you for staying
well,
on.
Is it Vicki Mitchell? Vicki?
Yes.
Well, you ought to join our
I'm in
local
Grand
government,
Junction.
although we're in Jefferson County, but. Okay, all right, everybody, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.